All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, we are live in full effect right here, right now. We got a phenomenal, legendary individual right here. We got the inventor of the G-Funk sound right here, live on the line. We got Cold 187 of Above the Law. How are you doing this evening?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm blessed. 10 toes down, man. I can't complain. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Just trying to stay positive down here in Canada, man. I notice out in the States, you guys are opening right back up. Here, we're still at stage one, pretty much.
Yeah. But you know, it may be something to change here.
Most definitely, hopefully. But I know you're a busy guy, man, so I'm going to dive directly into this interview. And I got to ask, man, what actually, as we already know, you're a member of Above the Law, but I got to know, man, what's the story behind that group? And, of course, how did you actually meet the other members?
Well, and me, DJ Chaos and KMG, we were childhood friends. You know, we've been friends since, like, Little League Baseball, basically. Went to high school together. And when we were, like, in the 11th, 12th grade in high school, that's when life got real. So we started hustling together on the streets. And then at that point, we met, Go Mac and, a couple of other our partners from South Central Los Angeles. We grew up in a place called Pomona, California. And we saw a hustle between South Central and Pomona. And then we started developing, Above the Law as a group, just, tampering music. I'm from a musical family, so I was kind of the music guy in the clique, the crew. So from there, we just started developing song ideas from movie hustling on the streets, and it kind of morphed into something real cool. And then we took, our street money, started investing into, the music thing. Did our demo, Living Like Hustlers, in 1988, 89. Got introduced to Laylaw, which is Gomac's brother, which at the time he was a part of NWA. And Eazy-E was starting Ruthless Records, so we shot them a demo, and the rest is history. Here we are. So.
And also, as well, as I mentioned at the intro of the interview, that you were actually the inventor of the G-Funk genre. And I got to ask, man, because I do know, unfortunately, not a lot of individuals give you your flowers when it comes to that. So I got to ask you, man, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And, of course, how did you discover that particular sound and form of music? Because G-Funk is so authentic.
Yeah, well, for me, I wanted to, since, when I first started out working with Dr. Dre, when we did Living Like Hustlers, I brought Living Like Hustlers to Ruthless, developed already. What Dre ended up teaching me how to do was just bump it up to a bigger sound, like a bigger studio, because I was working at a lot of, like, hood studios and stuff, smaller studios, so we bumped it up to a big commercial studio and got that commercial sound, but still on the underground at the time, because everything was underground at the time. As I start transitioning more into making records, I wanted Above the Law to kind of have their own sound. At the time, that wasn't kind of typically like boom in the back, because in the late 80s, a lot of it was break beats, a lot of sampling. So in order for me to break the mold of being like everybody else who was doing stuff, I come from a musical background. My dad was a producer at Motown. My uncle's Willie Hutch, So I wanted to integrate more instrumentation over hardcore hip-hop. So, and then put melody to it, singing, but still be hard-edge hardcore hip-hop, because at the time it was cutting edge, and at the time gangster rap was breaking through. So it suited that, the vibe, low ride, and the sunshine. It really identified how everything felt in Cali, So I wanted to create a signature sound for, like, Southern California. Slow the beat down a little bit, put melody to it. And it kind of evolved into really just me wanting to be different than the NWA sound, So, which is not no kick on that. It's just I wanted Above the Law to have their own identity,
And I got to say,
so it kind of morphed into everything. It kind of morphed into everything, that people call now the genre of G-Funk. Really, I was just experimenting as a young producer, looking for a new sound, So, and trying to integrate everything that I've done as a young musician, and becoming a young producer and having my own signature sound,
And I knew as well I had to bring that up because the real Above the Law fans and real hip hop fans know who invented the G-Funk. So I knew I had to give you your flowers at this during this interview.
Right. And we end up influencing, since I work so close with Dre, we end up influencing how the Chronic sound. We end up influencing how the first Warren G album sound, the first Snoop Dogg album sound, because we're all from the same camp. When you're making music, everything is all influences. That's what people fail to realize. It's not more like someone took anything from us. It's just our influence. We were more a hardcore group and influencing records like the Chronic and the Doggy Style album. Those were more commercial. It got commercially, critically acclaimed commercially. You know what I mean? And Above the Law is more of a hardcore underground group.
And also, as you mentioned a few moments ago about how you guys were signed to Ruthless Records, I was actually wondering, what was it like actually working alongside Eazy-E in the early days of Ruthless Records? Because Ruthless was one of the biggest labels in all of hip-hop, especially back then.
Oh, man. I mean, it's incredible. I think the most rewarding thing for us when we had the opportunity to be on a record label was the fact that we could continue to do it the way we wanted to do it. Because back then, you feel like, you're kind of walking on eggshells just making hip-hop music anyway, let alone trying to do gangster rap, which was a new form of hip-hop at the time. It wasn't even coined as that. The great thing about Eazy is that Eazy put the money behind those ideals, and it's incredible because he's the one who had the vision. He could have came in and said anything like, "Oh, do it like this," but he never deferred the fact of just do it the way you see it being done. Say it the way you want to say it. Put it on records the way and I'll back it. The brilliance of Eazy-E was that he was sharp enough to say, if people are talented, let the talent show. You know what I mean? He wasn't such a person who's like, well, I'm the guy with the money and I know everything. You know what I mean? He was more of the guy that said, like, hey, look, they got the talent, I got the money. Let me let that shine. And that's the brilliance of him, because there's a lot of phases in the game where you will see people after hip hop established itself and they become these geniuses. I never seen him portray himself as that. He always was a guy that let the people decide what it was. And the brilliance of him is that in the heart that he had, in the drive and the passion that he had, he believed that what he liked, people would like somewhere. It was just his job to make sure that the people that liked it like him actually heard the music, So it was incredible, man. I've never met, in business-wise, the way he looked at marketing, coming from being a street gangbanger, dope dealer, and turning into being the CEO of a big multi-million-dollar music entertainment conglomerate. It's shocking, man. When you look at it now, the normal executive now, you would say he's more driven by worrying about corporate America and worrying about how people are looking at it. He never looked at it like that. His whole thing was your image is what's going to sell you. If it's grimy, be grimy. If it's clean cut, be clean cut. If it's funny, be funny. And that's the brilliance of being around him, and the things that we learned from him at a very young age is that the business of show business, basically. A lot of people talk about the music business and the business, and he knew, okay, if you want to be looked at like this and you want to impact the culture like this, the market like this, you have to carry yourself like this. You have to make these kind of records if that's what you want, that's what you're trying to put across. You have to make sure that everything you do gives you the sense of your own identity so people can feel you on that level, It was incredible, my man. I can't, there's no one sole person that I've ever met through my whole career that's been more brilliant than Eazy-E.
And I heard nothing but phenomenal and good things about Eazy-E. I know as well. When I was growing up, man, looking at the news reports, they always made Eazy look like a bad person, but clearly he was a businessman. You know what I mean? There was more to him than NWA.
And that's funny that you say that, because that was the brilliance of him. He wanted you to think that he was a bad guy, but really he was a good guy. But he wanted people that's how he knew how to impact the culture. You know what I mean? And that's brilliant. You know what I mean? The fact that it's like Batman, it's like like Bruce Wayne, Batman. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's a brilliance to that. You know, to where like I want to be looked at as the most hated, but the most brilliant. You know what I mean? So that was an incredible thing. You know, that was an incredible knowledge to have. But then you know his personality was like that too. You know, he was the more likable person that either you loved him or hated him. You know what I mean? So.
And also as well, Above the Law actually collaborated with Tupac and Money B on this song called "Call It What You Want." And I have to ask you,
Yeah.
how did you guys get with Tupac? And of course, what was it like actually making that music video with him and Money B?
Well, the funny thing about it is that Tupac, when he did "Call It What You Want" with us, what fans might not know is he wasn't Tupac yet. He was just a guy who used to run around with Digital Underground, you know, and the crazy part about it, it was supposed Shock G, rest in peace, Cam G, rest in peace. It was supposed to be me, him. It was supposed to be me, Shock G, Money B, and Cam G on the record, right? But Shock G, I guess, was either producing or mixing something. He got held up in New York or somewhere, right? And we had already booked the time for the song, and we were on a deadline. It was one of the last few songs on the Black Mafia Life album. So Mon came in. It's like, well, we got it already slated out for 4 people, and Pac came to the studio with Mon. So we was like, okay, we need another person on the song, or you know, it's just gonna be us 3. He said, well, hey, we got 4 spots. You know, we might as well put the little homie on it, which the little homie ended up becoming Tupac. And this is right when Same Song had came out when they did he hadn't even done his record, hadn't even done a record yet, basically, his own record. He was being developed by them already, you know, at that time. So he's like, yeah, you know, I like his bars on Same Song record, so let's give it a shot. He came in, he took it. You know, at the time, he was just a little homie hanging out with us, to be honest, you know, and it came out fire. Then when Black Mafia Life got held up and Pac's record came up, he exploded, and then Call It What You Want came out. So that's why people think that he already was established as Tupac, but when he done Call It What You Want, but he hadn't even cut a record yet outside of digital.
And I gotta ask,
record before Brenda's House Baby and all of that. He cut that record before any of that. Call It What You Want was cut before that.
I actually never. I'm not gonna lie. I never knew that. I always thought it was cut like maybe in between Above the Law. I'm sorry.
No, he wasn't. No, he hasn't even made a record yet. Yeah.
And I remember the music video as well. You guys were in like a warehouse.
Because I thought so too until me and Mom was out of his house one time. Shout out to Mug B. We was out of the house one time. He said, "Man," he said, "you don't remember that Pac just came to the studio with me that day, and Shock was busy, and we just put him on a record. He didn't even have his record done yet. He hadn't even came out yet." I said, "You right." You know what I mean? So it's a trip, man. It's a trip how you go back through the history. You're like, yeah, he's right. He was right. When we do the timeline, it's like, no, those records aren't even done yet because the record that you're talking about actually got held up. You know, when people don't know about Black Mafia Life, Black Mafia Life was done the same time as Evil Vazagian was done. Niggas for Life was done. It was done at the same time. It just got held up because when Ruthless got dismantled, Easy changed all the distribution and everything, so our record ended up getting held up through the red tape, leaving Sony going to Warner Brothers.
And also, as well, Above the Law was actually a part of the West Coast Rap All-Stars, where you guys actually created a song titled "We're All in the Same Gang" actually to promote anti-violence. I was wondering, what's the story behind that, of course, supergroup, and of course, what was it like working on that project?
Well, the cool thing about that was Mike Concepcion. He used to come to when we first developed and Living Like Hustlers album. Mike Concepcion was trying to put together the compilation for the West Coast All Stars. We were the only new group that was on there, but he knew about us because he came through and heard our album, and we cut the Same Gang record at the studio that we did our album. So he kind of was like, hey, you know, it's like rookies. He wanted to give some rookies a shot, the next hot thing. So at the time, Above the Law was the next thing that was coming. So we actually got on that record because of that. It was incredible. I mean, because the cool thing about the Same Gang record that was really incredible was that we all did the record together. Like it was like we took a studio. Everyone came out to our studio in Torrance, California, where we did Straight Outta Compton, Living Like Hustlers, No One Could Do It Better, the Michelle Lake, No More Lies album. All those, we did all those records there, and everyone came to our studio to cut the record. So I mean, everybody came from Hammer to, everybody who was on the record came there to cut the record. It wasn't like Dre flew over here to Oakland and flew right here, and everyone came to the same studio. So the camaraderie on that record that one day was incredible. It's all these people in the studio that you could name that are hit artists at the time, on the side, writing their raps, writing their 16s, or their 8s or whatever we had, So that was one of the dopest experiences. Me being fresh into the industry, that was one of the most memorable times of my career, I could tell you that much,
And I gotta say, it must have been such surreal with so much talent in one room, man. Like, I don't know, like that song is still a masterpiece today, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, that was, like I said, that was incredible. Just looking around at all those people at the same time, writing their rhymes and then going in the booth and cutting it. It was incredible. Yeah. Mhm.
And also, going into your producing side of things, in the year 1990, you actually produced the NWA song, which is my personal favorite, 100 Miles and Running. And I was always wondering, what's the story behind that recording session? And of course, what was it like producing one of NWA's biggest songs?
Well, what was cool about it is we were out at Easy's house, and we wrote it out at Easy's house. And then we took it in the studio. And then when Dre was tightening up everything, I was like, I got these drums to go on it, because I actually came with the drums on there. So he didn't have the drums, so I went through my shit, and I was like, let's throw these drums on it. So we threw those drums on it, and that's how I cut my way in on production, because I was just a sponge at that time, fam. You know what I mean? I was just like a guy that just hung out at the studio and just sucked up everything, Whatever him and Yellow was in there doing, I was trying to retain as much as I could. So I tried to stay as close to the studio as I could. So, and that's just how that happened. It's kind of just me hanging out at the studio and saying, "Hey, I think this would be hot on there," and then dropped it on there.
And I gotta say as well, with your drums actually in the song, and also like the clock ticking and whatnot, like just the whole concept of the song and all the extra stuff in the background, I feel like that was a production masterpiece in my personal opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because and all those breakdowns and all that stuff, you get credit Yella a lot for that, because Yella was always good for putting little inserts and all this different stuff in there, And Dre was more like the rhythm, just keep it driving, and it was like a gumbo, like everybody coming to bring their little piece to it and turn it into the masterpiece that it became,
And one last question I have is pertaining to that song. Going back to when you actually said that you were actually, at Easy's house writing it and whatnot. That were you there when they actually came up with the concept of that song as well?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, like, what made them decide to write that song?
I mean, it just coming off of like we were more rebellious about everything, So I think it was like after when we looked at like the FBI situation and all those all those type of things, everybody coming at you, the media coming at us and all that, having to do the explicit lyric sticker and all that. It's like you on the run, So that's how that whole concept evolved. It evolved from that, like we always on the run, So.
And also as well, jumping ahead into the year 1999, you actually became the head producer for Death Row Records. I was wondering, how did that opportunity come to be? And of course, what was it like actually working for Suge Knight?
Well, yeah, I was a VP over there. I ran the label, and I was head of production. The cool thing about that is that me and Suge have been friends, all the way back since like '88. So we've been friends, when I first got into the industry, because he used to work with us over at Ruthless. And he just gave me a call one afternoon. I was in my office, and he was like, "Hey, I need some help." He was locked up at the time. And he was like, "I need some help. I need your ears. I need your vision. I need, everything they used to do for Eric." Because I was Eazy's liaison when Dre left and went to Death Row. So he already knew what I knew, like how to put everything in the right perspective musically, right there. So I took the job because at the time I wasn't labeled it was my first title as an executive, to become a VP of a company, because I always was in the shadows helping people make decisions, basically, in the background. Being a young guy saying, oh, yeah, try this, try that. This is my first shot at actually becoming someone who actually publicly now, I can call a shot or two creatively. It was great, for the most part. I mean, it was great for the most part, because I was able to, the biggest thing I was able to do is to help him turn the label around. I mean, unfortunately, he lost it. He lost it, litigation. But, I was able to turn it around, and we were able to do the Tupac, the first record after he passed. And that was the most incredible ride. That's probably a milestone in my career as a producer, as an executive as well, because I was able to help his legacy continue on through the fact that I took that job, So that, I think that was the most rewarding part. I would have helped Suge if that wouldn't have ever happened, because we were just friends, But it was great to be able to do the Tupac record. I think that was the highlight of everything I'd done over there, So.
And also, as well, that's why I'm glad I brought that up, because unfortunately, some individuals, they think that Death Row kind of was, like, done once Tupac passed away, but back when you were running it in 1999, you still had, like, Crooked Eye, you had You Guys Above the Law, you know what I mean? You guys had some phenomenal artists, so I just wanted to shed some light on that.
The label around, if we wouldn't all those legal problems, I think the label would have turned around. I just honestly do. I mean, that sometimes these things happen. We had Lisa Left Eye, we had Crooked Eye, we had an Above the Law record we were doing over there, a bunch of other stuff in development. We were trying to do the next Michelle album. We had a nice little R&B roster coming out too. So we would have been all right. It got turned around because of like a lot of legal stuff, and you know how that goes. I mean, that's just the nature of it all,
And also, when you actually brought up the Tupac record, that was actually next on my list. In 2001, you actually produced 9 tracks on Tupac's posthumous album, Until the End of Time. I was wondering, how did that opportunity arise, and what was it like working alongside Afeni Shakur on that particular project?
It was really cool because, I originally, like I said, when I became the VP of Death Row, that wasn't even on the table yet. But what happened is that I guess Death Row retained so much of the rights to be involved, they still had to keep Death Row involved, but they didn't have a music supervisor for the project. So Edie and Afeni called me and called a label and was like, well, if Hutch is there and that's Tupac's friend, we want him to be involved in it and just, quarterback the whole thing. And then Suge agreed. And we all, and then we started getting it done. The coolest thing about that is I had an opportunity to do something for a friend of mine and protect his legacy. That's one. 2, I was asked to do it. It wasn't a job that I was trying to apply for. It wasn't, it wasn't even on the table, bro. You know what I mean? So it speaks volumes when people really respect what you do as a producer and I was the supervisor. I produced those tracks and I was the supervisor over the whole thing. I picked all the songs that were on the record. So it was an incredible, and I mixed all those songs. I mixed the whole album. I mixed them all in like 21 days. I think it was like 21 days or something.
And I have to ask, was it a hard process as well? Because obviously we know Tupac was so thorough in the studio. Like, was it hard on you to actually be able to do that production? Just wondering if Tupac would actually kind of approve of that.
Yeah, well, it was hard. It was hard because he had so much stuff that it took me probably, I would say it took probably 3 months to go through everything, And then they only gave me 2 weeks to mix it. So
yeah, that's not a lot of time.
You have it. So I had a period of time to know all the music first. You know what I mean? And then because a lot of people, when they talk to me about the project, say that's the album that sounds like he did it with you. You know what I mean? Plus these other post passing albums, just that sound like people just chopping shit up. You know what I mean? I try to make it where as if it would be like he actually was here with us, you know? So.
And I have to say, I most definitely agree. Like, that double album is absolutely phenomenal in my personal opinion. When you say there was a lot of Tupac music, do you think there's still more in the vault? And do you think we might get another Tupac album someday?
Yeah, because I think, well, I haven't listened to a lot of stuff after whatever they did, where they just started free falling on him, like, you know. But what I heard a lot of music, and we only put like 25 songs on that album, if I can remember. I think it's like 25 songs on that album. But I mean, I listened to hundreds of songs, so I can tell you that there's a lot of music floating around, you know.
And also, jumping ahead in the timeline to 2016, you actually released The Black Godfather, which is one of your newest projects. I have to ask you, what's the story behind that phenomenal project? And of course, where can our listeners actually snag themselves a couple copies today?
You can actually, it's available. It's available online everywhere. But if you want the physicals, you have to go through Untouchable Music. I think we can go to untouchablemusic.com. What I'll do is I can inbox you that information. I don't know it right off my hand, but the cool thing about it, you know, that's the soundtrack to a television series that I'm shooting right now. You know, it was originally supposed to be a straight to video movie that me and the cats that are producing it end up turning into a series. You know, so now we're gonna re-release the whole album when the new season comes out at the end of this year. So people will be able to purchase it once the series comes out.
And also, as well, aside from the TV show and the new record that you're going to actually be re-releasing, what is next for yourself, Cold 187? Like, is there anything I happen to miss during this interview? Anything else you still want to talk about or promote? Will we still be here live on the Canadian airwaves?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have right now. I'm just finishing up the Cocaine album, Five on the Black Hand Side, which is set to release pretty soon. We also have the Architecture G-Funk album, which is featuring me and Cocaine, coming out later on this year. And then I have the Resurrection of Gangster Rap. Both of our presents 187 Mansa Musa, the Resurrection of Gangster Rap, coming out this year. I'm projecting Halloween, so but I have the single coming in July, so called Funk, featuring Cocaine. And then I have all my companies. I have I want everybody to check for all my merchandise, MansaMusaRoyalty.com. Follow me, wherever, Mansa Musa Royal, 187 Rockboy Honeys on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me, the Real Code 187. And I'm just continue to do my thing as a mogul. I'll be here as long as the Creator keep me 10 toes down and breathing this beautiful oxygen and sucking up this sunshine, my man.
I gotta say as well, though, man, it sounds like 2021 ain't no stopping for Cold 187, man. I gotta say first and foremost, before we part ways, man, thank you for years of amazing music, man, because I'm gonna be honest with you, your music actually inspired me growing up and got me through a lot of difficult times. So I just want to give you your flowers while you're on the station and say thank you for helping not only myself, but millions upon millions of other listeners worldwide through your music.
Well, you make me feel so humble, my brother, and I appreciate all y'all, everybody in Canada, everybody, out there have always supported me, and my group above the law. I love y'all and respect you, man. I respect you for that, man, and I appreciate you.
Hey, man, you are most certainly welcome. I appreciate you as well. But I got to say, have yourself a wonderful night, and most definitely stay safe out there in California.
All right, brother. Stay in touch, man. Y'all be safe out there, man. One love, man.
One love, brother.